Last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again. There's a bad guy coming through. Better get out of his way.
Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.
Introduce a little anarchy.
The Frankie Nieto Show.
The middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives. Very, very historic.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. When you dropped at the first sign of trouble.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Sway is locking eyes with an undercover cop on the subway. You know what he is, and he knows what you are, and you wink at him.
The Frankie Nieto Show.
I'm the enemy, because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice. I'm the kind of guy who likes to sit with a decent spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order gravy fries? I want high cholesterol. I want to eat bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay? I want to smoke a Cuban cigar the size of Cincinnati and a non-smoke accepted. I want to run through the streets naked with green jello all over my body reading Playboy magazine. Why? Because I suddenly might feel the need to, okay, pal? I've seen the future. You know what it is? It's a 47-year-old virgin sitting around in his beige pajamas drinking a banana broccoli shake singing, I'm an Oscar Mayer wiener.
There can be no bad blood between those who've experienced the same pain.
Fuck damnation, man. Fuck redemption. We are God's unwanted children. So be it!
We have succumbed to mindless ritual and seductive ceremony. Place faith in those who cross descent, enrich themselves with power, commit atrocity, all in the name of righteousness.
Jesus was black, Ronald Reagan was the devil, and the government is lying about 9/11.
Try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Okay, well, welcome to this latest edition of, or you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this the season finale of the Frankie Nieto Show. And in typical Frankie style, we're going to go ahead and propose a question to you. Or I want to propose a question to all of you. I'm joined in studio with, Steve O'Brien of FBG Live. And Marcus Wright, this first time guest for me and Marcus to sit down and talk. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Well, guys, always thanks for joining.
For sure, man.
So, my question is it ever okay to call the cops? Or is there a good time to call the cops?
Yeah, you hear that question bantered around a lot, and a lot of people want to do an absolute on that. And I'm kind of on that side of the fence, no. The police are a very violent organization, and a lot of times if you want to call the police, you may end up getting beat up, or something else might go wrong. They are not they're not good to be called. Deal with the problems yourself.
And I think really honestly that's a fairly recent, within the past decade or so, thing that it's gotten so to that point where the question even has to be asked. And it's kind of ridiculous that the question is even popping up,
Oh, okay.
Honestly, because it is an organization that is quote unquote set up to help, but it's supposed to be public service.
It's there to maintain, or from my understanding, this is how I always understood cops were to be. Sheriff and all that stuff was to maintain the order and the civility of the populace.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't a bunch of rapists and pillagers. We had some kind of structure, right? But it doesn't seem what it is nowadays, obviously, or not. It's not what it is nowadays, because it's more of a, we have to generate revenue. We got to pay for all these social order, weaponry.
I have a feeling it has something to do with the everybody's guilty of something attitude that you get from a quote law enforcement officer, right? He's trained to look at the person and try to trick them or get them to admit to something, and then they get a little bit, in their own head.
It generates paranoia.
Well, the law enforcement officer would be jumping into the role of, I'm in control, right? I have a gun. If I use it, you're going to die, most likely, and he's going to get off, right? How many times do these public employees kill somebody and then get convicted of killing them? Very infrequently. Now, we could go and we could quote numbers, but
everybody's already heard all the numbers. You can go look for yourself. and it's actually it is rising, the whole idea of police brutality, and I think something I thought about too is not so much that it's on the rise. It's just maybe now, since we're so, every information's at your fingertip, and so now it's just it's being exposed to it fully now, and now you're finally getting a full grasp of it.
So I have a lot of empathy for people caught in this conundrum of a mindset that says, no, you deal with your neighbor directly, straight on, right? It's my responsibility to handle my difference. I don't call the police, even though, there's a law that says they can't do this, and there's a law that says the cops should do this to that person. But we'll give that example of my friend that they have some dogs that are let loose every day when the owner goes to work. So he gets up and he lets his dogs loose. They run around the neighborhood, they do dog things, and they allegedly, cause havoc with other dogs. Well, the entire neighborhood, they're kind of like a little bit ticked off at this. And what I'm told is when the guy was confronted, that he went over there in front of the person and beat the dogs. Okay, so what do you do then, right? This person is using some kind of a strange tactic of abusing an animal. Oh, so you're going to complain, I'm going to hurt it. Yeah. Right? It's kind of like, whoa. So that person, what do we do with that? Okay, so here in Texas, dogs can walk around in the country, but if they go on your land, and you can shoot them, and that's common practice. That dog shouldn't be, roaming around and doing that. Well, again, with this guy, he's running around with the reputation of, well, you shoot my dog, I'm going to shoot all your dogs. Now, are these reputations deserved? Right? Am I just hearing hearsay? Well, I'm not too sure, because my friend is kind of, pretty straightforward on this.
Well, I would say that, those kind of rumors might actually be valid. I mean, because if he's the type of person that if I went to you, it's kind of the same thing like the type of person that you would spank their kid on somebody else's word. The same thing with the dog. Somebody came up and told you that your dog did something, and then you go beat your dog. You have no proof of it, and the behavior's not that needs to be corrected is not being done at the time. So in other words, you just randomly using violence just because you're in a violent mood. So it is quite possible that if they would have that kind of mindset of, well, if you shoot my dog, I'm gonna go kill all your dogs. No, it is very hard to figure out the kind of solution, because I'm instantly drawn. Like my solution would have been, well, if I would have saw the guy, if I would have been in the situation where I see the dog getting beat, I'd probably go beat the guy. In all fairness,
at least be vocal about it to some extent. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. So.
Or that night we're gonna do some black ops and I'm gonna go kidnap that dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a strange thing. Or you can do one of those animal rescue where you put a $20,000 sting operation to have cameras everywhere and catch and do this, and how much energy is that?
Right.
Shoot the dog. Right. If it comes onto your property, you have the right to do it. Do it. Don't let the threat of bullying and intimidation be the deterrent, because the bully, he knows how you're going to react when he goes over there and beats the dog. Now, the problem is this bully might escalate on you. And the moment his dog comes onto your land, threatens your animals, or whatever, you manage it.
Right.
And enough said. I'm sorry about the dogs, but we've got a bigger problem in the neighbor, because that's not somebody that I don't know.
Well, okay, I mean, like you said, though, he could escalate. So, he's already made the threat, even though, most bullies, yeah, you're right. Most bullies are full of hot air. So, okay, you follow through. What do you do then when he does follow through that threat?
Yeah, and what's the difference between me calling a sheriff or some other guy with a gun to come over and say, don't beat your dogs?
Well, that's just going to escalate it too.
Right.
It's just going to piss
the same thing.
That much more.
Instead of using words, you're sending a guy with a gun.
It is an obvious solution for most minds to go to, but it's not. I mean, it just escalates it too. It's like, it's a silly thing, really.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I'm still not on the ship of, or the frame of mind that says call the cops in that situation.
Well, yeah,
but I'm not in their boots either,
Right.
right? And so I'm sitting there armchair quarterbacking, running on rumors, innuendos, and people's ideas of other people, right? It's trippy, to say the least.
It puts a predicament though too when you call the cops, because then you're putting everybody else in that area in danger too, because you know there's here recently you can see countless articles of where cops went to the wrong house, you know, or cops shot somebody for no reason, you know, the cop's gonna shoot the dog, they've proven that already, you know.
Well, maybe not out here in Gillespie County. They won't necessarily do that. Some of them are, you know, but I don't know if I'm blowing smoke, but...
Well, I think honestly, from what I've seen, as a guy that's owned pit bulls, I've had sheriffs that have deputies that have come to the house, and they flat out will come out of their car with their hand on their sidearm. And it's breed specific. Like there's some, you know, some people react differently with races. Some people act differently with breeds of dogs.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
But I can't. In that situation, I can justify. In that
So
kind of
let's
example,
let's go back to what Marcus was pointing out earlier about the mindset being has changed in the last 10 years. Right, of don't call the cops. What's different now that wasn't different then? So
well, it could just be what Frankie was saying too, of just more people paying attention, and since there's more information available with like the internet and things, that we're kind of just paying attention more, because I don't think the statistics have really changed as far as police violence goes.
No.
Really, it's probably been fairly steady for
Right.
a long time.
It's been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
In order for them to maintain the power hold that they have and actually gain the power that they, the system in itself.
Well, and initially, like, the idea of a police force at all was put forward to protect the rich property. Like, it was kind of like security systems in a gated neighborhood, you know? That was really where the modern idea of police force came from. So when you look at it at that view and you really trace it that far back, everything that we have now makes sense, you know? Right. Because they're still doing the same thing. They might be protecting public property, but most of the public property that they're protecting is owned by who?
Yeah, it is privately owned. In order for there to be something valid as property, it has to have some.
I've had cops come and tell us to get out of a bank parking lot one time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty straightforward right there, like a Wells Fargo or something.
Well, that is, of course,
playing music in the parking lot.
Well, that would
private property.
But that's what I mean, is that's what their main focus is protecting those properties, and you know what I mean, serving that. It's not to serve the public or to, keep things in check, like you were saying earlier, which is that's what we were told as children. That's why that mindset is there, is that, they're the
that's what we're
big
told
protectors of the society. And
right, we're even told that as adults. I mean,
Oh, no, of course. But that's why it's there prevalent now.
Yeah, it's the television, news, all that stuff that says, the cops are here for you. They're here for you. I don't understand why people want to film the police. I don't understand why people are so upset about cops, handcuffing people and stopping them randomly and frisking them because, they fit a certain type of person.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of dangerous jobs in the world, and law enforcement is somewhere in the ranks, but nowhere near the top. And they get into it for whatever the reason they're getting into it. But the truth is, the only reason that they're willing to kill people and enforce the law is because somebody's feeding them. So, are they hired mercenaries? Is that what they are? Because they're inflicting this trauma on our society, and we're inflicting it ourselves, right? When we sit there and call the police on our neighbor for how
loud the music is,
or how high the lawn is.
Oh yeah,
whatever. You used too much water this month. Yeah. Here comes the guy with the gun. You protest? That's okay. We'll put a black mark towards you. Sooner or later, that black mark gets really big, and they come at you with guns, and they take your house, all that, for using too much water and not paying the fine. I love America. Well, at one point, I loved America, and I can't say that there aren't remnants of that America that I loved left, because the America that I grew up in was the concept of a republic. And the republic was for the people and protected us. Now we spend so much time scrutinizing the general population and doing little traffic stops, and we're filmed all the time, and they have secret files on us. They don't call them secret files, they call them their property. And they sit there and they won't even let you, see this stuff.
Right.
Heck, your school records are accessible to Bill Gates, because he has an educational program that needs to see all of your, this and your that. And so they sell your school records. But you want to see your school records? That's not allowed. No. So that's kind of a bummer. So that's the kind of America, that's the part of it that has grown in the last 10 years.
A lot of it, too, is like kind of, it's a remnants and a snowball, really, from like the Cold War paranoia, And, which is funny because it's repeating right now with Russia directly. But like, that to me was a super political theater. If you really, really delve into the history of it, it was both countries bringing each other up by keeping this paranoia going.
Right.
Of, well, I'm going to build my armament bigger, and we're going to kill you, and they're like shaking hands behind closed doors,
Yeah.
And now they're doing the same thing essentially, but it is kind of a more friendly thing. But that's, I think a lot of it, and I think it stems from way further than that too, but I think what we're seeing right now is super direct from that. Like, you can see the paranoia, how big we started building up the police, how big we started building up the military from that era, and it just kind of kept going, and then we started searching for other threats to justify that, because it had created so many jobs and this and that, we're spending so much money into it, that how do you really just stop doing that? I mean...
I'm not too sure. But hey, let me ask you both a pointed question.
Sure.
Tell me what you think is going on in the Ukraine.
Honestly, I do believe, like most of these revolutions that have happened, the Arab Spring, all of these things, there's genuine discourse within the people. Yeah, they do want to. They want a new government. They want to be recognized and everything like that. So I believe it is at its core genuine. It's genuine, but it has all those earmarkers of an operation done through financial international financing, through American programming. It's American foreign policy 101. We see that there's. We placed in a dictator, so we're gonna go ahead and cause a little disturbance. We're gonna cause
an external entity took advantage of the internal strife of the population, financed it, backed it, pushed really far,
gave it the access to the media,
publicized it. Yeah, and I've seen those earmarks too, and that's very.
That was the first thing I thought when I first started seeing it, because of one of the first videos that started going viral, which is a kind of a big sign of like the mainstream media is not talking about this, and the next an hour 3 million people have seen it.
And you see this.
But was when they were storming the Capitol building, and it was very violent, And that to me is, not saying, like you said, the people are genuinely to that point. But I think that through the discussion that I see from citizens from all over the world, because anytime this happens, when we were talking about Iran several years back and all these things were going to a head and all that, and right now too, citizens themselves, because of having access to the internet from these countries, are immediately going on and posting videos like, this is not what's exactly going on, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of confusion in that. But to me, that's more genuine, when a citizen in the country is kind of like, hey, that's not what what you're being told isn't the true story. Here's a little bit of something that's going on from an inside, from somebody that lives here. And I just think that to get that many people, citizens, to be that violent so quickly, it's something. It's weird. And I don't think that, I think it's kind of like the Occupy movement. I really think that was started with some nefarious reasons, and that there was some kind of we'll start some discourse in New York and it'll fizzle out fairly quickly, or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they wanted it to spread. But I really think that there was something, and then it sparked so quickly that it did become a people's movement. Because once it gets to the West Coast, or even the middle, Chicago and Portland, that's their own movement all of a sudden. And it is the people going, hey, they're walking and marching on Wall Street, holy, let's do this. And I really think that could happen easily. Like, you get a group of 10 or 20 black, you know what I mean? Like, just freaking black suits or whatever, and go in, and they start throwing Molotov cocktails, and people are, woo! It's starting, let's go!
Yeah.
So, Marcus, so are you saying that you share that suspicion that there's external forces in play?
I do, very much so. I think it would be very ignorant to not at least have the suspicion of that. And I try not to be an absolutist on anything, because I'm wrong 50% of the time. So, I mean, just, you know what I mean? Like, anytime I go super passionately into something, I'm not looking at something else. So I always try to remain that kind of outside balance and not be too unto one direction, but it definitely has very obvious signs of that, and especially with what I mentioned about the Cold War and these things. It does seem to be repeating that these two major, you know, forces are kind of helping and using each other to keep raising power, and the obvious American empire is, I mean, been doing this for so long. I mean, it's, you know.
I know, it was almost comical on Friday to hear that the Russians are telling the Americans that, you know, don't do sanctions because those aren't cool. And, you know, the Chinese are all, we're with the Russians. And then
man.
North Koreans are all, yeah, what they said. You're like, oh man, it's been years, but I keep hearing that same meme come over and over again. But this time, it's going to be brutal, right? You know, they're going to do X, Y, Z, and poor Jen, she hates that reference.
XYZ reference?
Yeah, remember?
Oh, yeah.
She spent a whole show beating on me once for that.
No, all of it, though, and ultimately, it's just like anything else as far as global geopolitical politics, you know, it's just grandstanding. They're both sides are benefiting from this. Real people are dying in the streets, you know, that
even cops.
Yeah,
I mean,
on both sides of the
really probably
spectrum
more cops
down.
in some of these skirmishes.
You know, actually, that's, you bring up a great point, Marcus. I was watching Russia Today, the satellite feed, and I saw a little spot that they were plugging, right? So Russia Today is actually owned by the Russians, so you're getting Russian propaganda, what they're seeing, their point of view. Of course, watching corporate U.S. media, you're going to get whatever the heck they want to give you, and then you get whatever's out on the net. Well, anyways, Russia Today was interviewing the elderly mother and father of a cop that was on the riot line, and he died. Well, the night before he died, well, he died with a Molotov cocktail or a bullet or whatever, and he calls up Dad, and he's all, Dad, I might die out here, right? And they're killing people. And Dad's all, I'm sorry, son, be safe. And, you know, then Junior dies. And Junior's probably about 40 or something like that. He's an old man. But what was interesting is seeing this line of, quote, quote, well, there's two things interesting. Seeing the line of law enforcement officers who are usually used to outnumbering the individual, having to deal with a few to many type configuration, when they usually come at you, you know, with force, right? They come to your house for, you know, your lawn or your music. 1, 2, 3. Wow, you need a lot of them, right?
Or even just a traffic stop.
Just
Nowadays,
a traffic
just a
stop.
normal traffic stop, they almost always call for backup.
Right, they come in, they're in their normal day-to-day lives. They are the aggressor. Like, for instance, me and you have it in a court where in that court case where I was resisting arrest. All three officers all said that they come into a situation at a level higher than the people that they're going to confront. So they come in, if you're at level 6, they come in at level 8 because they have to be the dominant ones. So yeah, when you're you're saying there,
now you're doing my point.
Now when you're standing there, all of a sudden there's 50 people in front of you, and there's only 25 cops, you know, or 10 cops. It's totally there. All of a sudden being like, oh shit.
Well, back to the kind of like Occupy thing. When that was going on in Portland, I lived in a house. I mean, there was probably anywhere from 10 to 20 people that actually lived there off and on for quite a while, and it was a big house, you know. But that was a very torn situation when that happened, because all of us are fairly on the same level with most of this stuff anyways, and education-wise and what we should do. But I went to the first big march in Portland because pretty much everybody in the house supported the movement to some extent, or at least the idea of a movement starting. And I was pretty much in the front, or like I was moving around the whole group, but there was several thousand people, you know, had a specific route, and it was a totally permitted march and everything, you know. Well, we were supposed to be able to march from the park around the city back to the park, and it was a pretty big march, and it was a lot of people, so people were coming outside and joining the march. It was pretty interesting. I was really just there supporting friends and things, and the idea of a spark. But I got to the front. When we got about 2 blocks from the park, there was a line of policemen, and they had set up a blockade, but we had a permitted march. So it was a complete just show of aggression and dominance, just the same thing. Yeah. And there was only about 10 cops standing on the line, right? And so I'm up front, and everybody's just confused. Everybody literally stopped and was just kind of, what's going on? I don't understand. And the cops are just standing there, stone-faced, you know, robotic. And I was asked several of the cops, what gives you the legality to set up blockades when people went through your loopholes to fill out this paperwork, get a city permitted march, to do this legally and peacefully, and now you got higher orders, so you're just standing here and you don't even know why you're standing here, do you? And none of them would answer me, so I started telling people just cross the brigade. The only thing they can do is give you a jaywalking ticket or something, you know, like if they want to go that far. It's not going to happen. We're not being aggressive. Just cross the line. Right. And I walked out into the middle of the street, and several people walked with me, and then we walked back over, and even the cops just stood there. And so eventually we all just kind of went around the barricades, and nobody did anything, and we walked back to the park. And all the cops got back in their cars, but it was one of those things. It was their higher-ups told them to just stand there and look like you said, a level higher than us. Mm-hmm. And since we were being so peaceful, they just kind of stood there, you know.
So my question ends up coming to the Ukrainian government, and, well, a general question to you two. So the Ukrainian cops stood there with riot shields in their plastic body armor, for the most part, you know, and let Molotov cocktails be rained down on them. Where was their +1? Should they have +1 that?
In all fairness, when it comes to acts of aggression, you are within your full natural rights to defend yourself. Whether I'm a cop or not, if you throw a fucking flaming ball of gas at me and I make it through it, best believe we're going to have problems.
Well, and that's why I made the point that I made of, it's not like any the leaders or the people that are starting these things are the ones on the front lines at all. The cops are brothers and sisters also, and they're getting killed, like I said, probably in more, a lot of those skirmishes. And they're letting it happen, like you said.
Well, remember a few years back when, you know, in Canada they got those agent provocateurs throwing rocks at, you know, the big 3 meeting, right? Because they're like, hey, this is a peaceful thing. Why do you got masks on? Right? So the Canadians shut it down. For some reason, there was an armed element in the Ukraine, right? Were those the people that are just fed up, you know? We've seen that before, you know, but
like I said, it could have very well been those are some natural growing people that have just gotten to the point of I can't have it enough. But we're not there on those grounds. We're not in there because as far as we know, I can't speak of those conditions. I don't know how it is to live in the Ukraine, dude. Because if I put it in the imagination of how the people do describe it over there, I can't say that I wouldn't be out there with loading that catapult, because I don't know if you know this, but they do have a catapult.
It's crazy, man.
You know, it would be the same instance of here.
And why are we in their business even right now?
That's the biggest point.
Right. How many minutes have we talked about Ukraine? Well, probably because it has a lot of geopolitical ramifications on the United States. They're saying we're going to call your loan by taking their, we got all this money that we borrowed, throw that onto the market and crash the dollar. Ooh, world doom this weekend, right? Monday, the stock market's going to suck. Well, I don't really believe that's going to happen necessarily. But, you know, they're floating that out there as a political idea. So I guess that's why I talk about it and why I pay attention to it. But realistically, as a nation, it's way over there, man. We've got problems here at home, and we're trying to address them. Right. I think just together, us three address them constantly by raising awareness levels of the issues, that people aren't alone, that we have a lot of shared experiences. You know, Frankie and I, we covered the Occupy, the tail end of Occupy, right? It was actually the birth time of the Peaceful Streets Project. And some of the momentum that came out of the Occupy movement, it grew with its experience, because, you know, in the Occupy movement, the live streamer came into play. The guy that's out there and he's streaming to the internet so you can see what's going on. We're talking constant communication. We're over here, right? Which is really interesting. So Peaceful Streets, first Police Accountability Summit, we go in there and you see all these guys in their camera rigs and you're like, wow, man, that's great. I thought I was alone with all my cameras, adapters, recorders. These are my brethren. How many times are everybody's recording? Everything's being recorded. And that's one of the neat things that actually came out of the Occupy stuff. And I'd have to, the rise of live streams and how that's going to carry on. Now, they have an application that was used in Ukraine, and I believe it's called WhatsApp, and it's a walkie-talkie program. So you install it on your Android or your iPhone, and you know, all of a sudden you can talk one to many, right? So you know, oh, you got that channel? Oh, it's right here. So I say, go left. Everybody gets it on their smartphone. That's go left.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but
you think that would have been first.
Yeah, totally.
Well, it's like
that's such a good idea.
Arab Spring brought us Twitter, right? So they're using this new one to promote this new software product, you know, and it's a concept and it's a simple feature. You know, Nextel had that same function, right? But they did it at the carrier level.
You know what? The reason why those you know, back to how much time we spend talking about it, about these world issues, because I don't want the streets of Fredericksburg to be the streets of Ukraine. I don't want it to ever get to that point. And you got your doom and gloomers that are, oh no matter what you do, da da da. And it's like,
welcoming it in.
Yeah, it's malarkey. You're just feeding it, man.
Yeah.
Because I was having this discussion with a friend last night, and she goes, you know, I hate. We were talking about the relevancy of the state. And she goes, you know, by the way, I hate politics. And I was like, well, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about a cultural shift. Because we are in that cultural mindset that, oh, well, we have to tolerate this in order to be safe. You know, if you want to fly, you have to tolerate your girlfriend being molested by the TSA. If you want to drive a car, you have to tolerate being pulled over randomly because of arbitrary numbers, you know? Or some statue, or because you don't have the right sticker.
Right, or you haven't paid the people the state feel you should pay for insurance, it's other extortion fees, you know, whatever. But I do see what you're saying, and I agree with the whole, well, I think there's a shift towards more personal responsibility, and a lot of people are having issues how that aligns up. You know, we've really grown up in a nanny state, and you know, it doesn't matter if you're a child of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. Each one of these were told absolute rules, and then they had cops that would carry them out. And then they showed us good cops on TV and all this other stuff.
And for sure, I mean, there's definitely humanity in humans. I mean, that's a silly thing to think that. I don't think that all cops are evil or anything. I mean, the whole all cops are bastards thing, I kind of like that a little bit, but I don't like to call names and shit.
But how many of them...
I want healing for my brothers and sisters, all of them, you know.
Sure,
all of
sure, you know, doesn't matter.
But that's that mindset, it's the gang mindset when you get into that of, I'm in a brotherhood now, so...
This guy's bad, and this guy doesn't go after the bad guy.
I've been jumped,
Is he good?
And arrested for resisting arrest after cops jumped me, you know, in San Francisco, which is just a silly thing. Like, how does that, okay, like, how am I resisting arrest when you literally ran up on me and jumped me? That doesn't make, you know, they didn't have anything to charge me for, so they charged me for resisting arrest because I was confused. And I'm, what, 5'6", 5'7", like, 120 pounds? Seriously?
Right.
You know, I mean, I might know jujitsu or something. You never know.
You might have been a Jedi Master, dude.
Right, totally. Which I keep it under wraps. But
so when Google Streets came out, I go, how the hell do you counter this surveillance of you all the time? You know, if somebody else is recording you all the time, all of a sudden they can modify that footage and make it do what you aren't doing. And at the rate that footage is right now, that's easily faked, right? And they don't have forensic experts at the police department tearing apart every video. They look at it, they say, Well, camera technology has been advancing so much, and so has like the little RC car type thing, and offloading the computer aspects of a complex device to a personal device like a PDA. You can literally, I've seen prototypes of little flying helicopters that will sit there and track and keep a camera on you the entire time. So you know how you're playing a first-person shooter and then you have a follow cam?
Yeah.
Well, they're actually at the point right now where you can have your own follow cam. You just sit there and you hit the app, camera goes up, it's on you, it's streaming to your phone, streaming to the net.
What?
You know, I've seen prototypes, and I'm sure somebody's getting ready to do the market on that.
That's pretty dope, man.
The Occupy movement put personal drones in people's hands because they took little RC cars, put cameras on them,
Yep.
and then they even rewrote the operating system, right? Because the manufacturer used Linux, and they said, man, all these checks and balances suck, let's do this, and wow, a whole new industry is born. So cameras can protect you, because one of the only things that's going to protect you if somebody tweaks the footage of their film, or maybe loses their film, is having your own film. It's the whole cameras everywhere. But it does offend a lot of people. And it's asking, so in San Francisco, there's a social media journalist. Do you actually believe that there's a journalist for a newspaper that talks about social media? Is that crazy? Well, on Facebook today, or I don't know what she does, but it was crazy. So Chickie goes into a bar, right, on H Street. It's called Molotov's. And
what you're talking about.
She goes in there wearing her Google glasses.
Yeah.
And she starts showing them to her friends that she met there, and all of a sudden people took offense, and one guy got riled up and got in her face. I guess he even yanked the Google glasses off of her.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a big altercation, and she got out, and well, I guess she left Molotov's and somebody ripped her off and stole her purse and did this and that.
Wow.
And so she had a bad night and goes home and Facebooks it and twits it and does all this stuff, calling them Google Glass haters. And I'm like, well, you don't quite see the argument here, girl.
Right.
You know, the argument is you're on private property. These guys are going in there to relax. The owner doesn't know how to deal with this situation yet. The patrons don't like whatever they don't like. Maybe they don't like cameras being pointed at them all day long. Because we can't go to a corner without seeing a camera, right? We know the cops all have cameras. We see cameras and, you know, I don't know. I can't get into that guy's head. But this girl, she thought she had the right to be wearing this intrusive device. Possibly intrusive, right? And she might have demonstrated the fact that she didn't have any kind of concept of personal privacy. She might have, who knows? But
she was a salesman at that point too. She was just trying to show off
Right.
the asses of the
Yeah.
bar. I mean, that might piss somebody off too, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Well, and like owners actually in that area have started putting up, because of this incident, have put up signs that says that you cannot wear them.
Really?
Yeah, that you're not allowed to wear them because of the privacy, the respect for the privacy of their patrons.
Yeah, because even phones and cameras are everywhere, but people still ask.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not
one
like
of
people
my
just
big
walk
problems
around
is
taking
when
pictures and filming everybody. You can't
when
do
I
that
go
with a
to-
camera.
Right.
You gotta
when I
ask.
go to the court of law, right, you know, a court, most of them won't let you record at all.
Oh yeah, I've tried a few times, and every time they either make me take out my batteries, make me give them my memory card, and I've had a judge even want to check my phone after the trial because she didn't believe me that I wasn't recording, because I kept playing with my phone while I was talking the whole
So she
time.
thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there when Chuck recorded, and he didn't really know he was supposed to record, and the judge was just tired of Chuck, right? And so they threw him in jail.
Oh, no.
And he was just sitting there holding his phone up, recording. And then the chick, the sheriff lady goes, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm recording." And he goes, "Contempt of trial, you're out of here." He's like, What? Well, I've been to a few courts before, and I knew that was most likely frowned on. And so I wasn't recording, but they got hot on my case, and they stuck a sheriff behind me, and all of a sudden the judge asks me, "What's that in your hand?" And I'm all, "What?" And "Yeah, you." He already called me out. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm a reporter." And he said, "Oh." Long story short, I wasn't recording. That was a very interesting incident because Chuck was ignorant of the fact that the court didn't allow that. And there was no kind of leniency at all. It was just slam, throw you in jail. And that was pretty scary. He didn't know. He wasn't trying to do anything nefarious. Mm-hmm. It wasn't he wouldn't, right? He knows how it works.
Yeah.
You don't violate stupid stuff. Oh, hey, I wanted to get this in here before we close this up.
I know, yeah, it's getting to the point where this will be the end of this round table discussion because I think all three of us need a refill.
Oh, yeah, is that what's driving it?
I think that's how we'll do this.
Pretty much right there, right?
I think that's how we'll close these always. Once we finish the drink, we'll go ahead and wrap it.
Right.
Okay, that works.
That's a good call.
So Rick Reinierson, I heard something new today that's going on in his case. So Rick Reinierson, if you don't know who he is, he's an Air Force guy, and he was driving in Texas, and he was stopped by the Border Patrol. They were very harsh on him, very bad, and they didn't treat him very well. He's had a lot of run-ins. He's formed a group called Veterans Against Police Abuse, and we ran into him the first time at the Peaceful Streets program, the project, the opening police accountability summit.
Yeah.
Well, he's flying out to Fox News to be on Fox and Friends to talk about his cop stop mobile.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
that thing, he even said that thing's if you haven't checked this thing out, Margaret, it has cameras in every imaginable place possible.
We were kind of sort of talking about the idea several weeks back.
And it has if I'm right, it has the capability to upload, to stream.
As soon as it
he has two different routers that actually route to two different ISPs. Right, at least when it's going in its full force. Microphones on the on both mirrors, cameras on the mirrors, cameras in the front, cameras in the rear. He has a smoke screen. Not too sure why he did that, but it was probably just fun, right?
It's like, well, I'm putting all this other stuff in. Let's go ahead and make it a little spyish.
Right.
Boom.
Right. So there's this bulletproof Mitsubishi, right, all designed for personal protection. And to also make sure that everything that happens there, it's got a record of how fast he was going, all this stuff. His information is offloaded to the net to keep, the record straight. And he started a push, right? And a lot of people are going to these kind of like personal security systems for their car because they have a camera running and they're recording everything, and they might delete it. And so your only witness might be your own stuff, right? And I don't know. It's interesting that Fox dragged him out. I'd like to get more interest in his lawsuit out there. We'll see where it goes. But we definitely haven't heard the end of Rick Reinierson.
So he's going to be on Fox and Friends?
Yeah, it's coming up this week, I believe. Well, I don't know how they work, right? So they're probably
watching Fox.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know.
It's as bad as watching.
It's like the only thing I yell at if I see it.
Well, the only thing is it's a different people group. The audience that he reaches, and he needs to reach out. And talk to more people and show them that there are ways to protect yourself while you're driving. Because they get a lot of revenue from driving infractions or whatever, and we can't deal with that. They got to go away.
like I said, this was the end. Marcus, thank you for joining us on the season finale, man. That was awesome.
Here's to the next season.
Yeah, the next season. Look out for the next season coming soon. And
Hiawatha.
Works for me. We're out.
Peace.
Through the best of times, through the worst of times, through Nixon and through Bush. Do you remember 36? We went our separate ways. You fought for Stalin, I fought for freedom. You believe in authority, I believe in myself. I'm a Molotov cocktail, you Dom Perignon, baby. What's that confused look in your eyes? What I'm trying to say is that I burn down buildings while you sit on a shelf inside of them. You call the cops on the looters and pie throwers. They call it class war, I call it co-conspirators. 'Cause baby, I'm an anarchist, you're a spineless liberal. We marched together for the 8-hour days and held hands in the streets of Seattle. But when it came time to throw bricks through that Starbucks window, you left me all alone, all alone. You watched in awe at the red, white, and blue on the 4th of July. While those fireworks were exploding, I was burning that fucker and swinging my black flag, hiding the peanuts that the parties have tossed you in the backseat of your father's new Ford. You believe in the ballot, you believe in reform, you have faith in the elephant and jackass. And to you, solidarity's a 4-letter word. We're all hypocrites, but you're a patriot. You thought I was only joking when I screamed, "Kill Whitey," at the top of my lungs, at the cops in their cars and the men in their suits. No, I won't take your hand and marry the state. 'Cause baby, I'm an anarchist, you're a spineless liberal. We marched together for the 8-hour days and held hands in the streets of Seattle. But when it came time to throw bricks through that Starbucks window, you left